This was one of my standout announcements for 2015, a 1/32 scale mainstream injection moulded F-86D Sabre dog. I've always associated this type with the Sabre ever since I first built the Airfix kit back in the 1970s in 1/72 scale. The number of attractive colour schemes for this type are absolutely outstanding, and I'm really hoping the aftermarket decal manufacturers take this on board. So let's have a look in the box and see what we've got. Crammed to the top doesn't really do this justice. As you can see here, it is an incredibly full box of plastic. It is very pleasing to see that Kittyhawk have carried on with their method of boxing the clear parts in their own little box inside the box, ensuring that these will reach you completely undamaged. Here we have the main fuselage, or the front of the fuselage. The kit is very modular. Now there is a reason for this. Obviously we're going to be getting a F-86K and an F-86L at a later stage. Engraved detail is incredibly good. I'll try and zoom in on it a bit so we can have a look and see if we can pick this up in the light. It's quite fine, but I think under a coat of primer and with the silver finish on top will look really nice. The Mighty Mouse rockets, that's one of the most distinguishing features on this one, and they're quite nice, well represented actually. That looks quite tasty. Here we have the separate tail section. Now this is obviously done like this so you can show off the engine. There isn't actually any trolley to hold this, so you're on your own if you do actually leave the tail off. But it's nice to be able to show the engine off. One little quibble: injection pin marks. This is the inside of the intakes. As you can see, there's quite a few towers still left, quite deep pin marks. They'll need to be cleaned up. They're the only ones on the whole kit that I can see on the intake of four, in the inside of four of the intake pieces. This is one of the detail parts sprues. This covers things like the cockpit, ejection seat and jets. If we have a quick look though at some of the details here, we'll zoom in closely. This is on one of the sidewall panels. Really nice done. Will look very effective under paint. You do get a decal that covers over this, but realistically I think most people want to paint it. If we move around the sprue, that one's a bit of an unusual one. That's the radar for the nose. There's no real way of displaying it, but you do have the complete radar assembly. That's behind the canopy. All in all, very, very nice. I did notice there was one pair of ejector towers. It was on the rear of one of the ejection seat parts. I'll just see if I can find it. There it is. And there we go. There we go. So you can see that there's some quite high raised pins there. Those will have to come off, but they are on the inside of the part. Here we have the main wings. As you can tell, all the flaps, slats, ailerons are all separate parts that can be posed realistically. Again, level of detail on these wings is really, really nice. The engraving is to a very high standard. It's very petite. Will look great under a natural metal finish. And here we have the leading edge slats, the flaps and the ailerons. Underwing stores, main wheels and top of the undercarriage bay. Now that in particular looks really quite sweet. There's the detail on that. Sidewinders. Yeah, we've got a pair of sidewinders here. Not sure which option that's applicable to. Certainly not the American ones, maybe the Taiwanese in the grey finish. We'll look at the finishes in a minute. Here are the clear parts on top of their box. I did actually try putting them on the white paper, but they just disappeared. Really, really super clear and very optically perfect. When you put your finger underneath it, there's no real refraction. Really sweet. Here we have the first of the two parts for the decal sheets. Not sure where this is printed. It looks as good as some of the Italian manufacturers achieve, but it isn't an Italian one. Even the smallest stenciling is readable. It's a really nice sheet. The colours are quite vivid and it just looks really quality. This is the second smaller sheet. Has markings for the Korean option and one of the aerobatic options. You also have the markings to overlay the engraved detail if you choose to. Looks quite sweet, but I think most people will be using aeroscale dials or similar and brush painting. Now the instructions are really first rate. It's typically Kittyhawk style with the parts guide, a fold out sheet with the main option, which I think is probably going to be the most popular one, really nicely represented. Do quite like this aerobatic scheme from the Sabre Knights. That's also very nice. And then you move through the construction in a unsurprisingly logical sequence from the cockpit, going through to the engine. That's a fully detailed engine. Everything is there, though most of it will be invisible on the completed model. Closing up the fuselage halves, and then the pages get stuck together. The rocket tray, tail, radar section. Note the complete radome if you chose to leave the radar if you chose to leave the radome off. The wings with their separate slats and flaps. Again, very easy for them now to make the extended wing as fitted to the K and the L variants, which will be interest to European countries who use those. Finishing sections. More marking options. Rather attractive Korean, Texas Air National Guard, Japanese, and the only one that's not in a natural metal finish is from the Republic of China, and I believe that's the one the sidewinders are aimed at. So I've got no conclusive proof, but I believe that's the one that had the sidewinders fitted. So that's it, my first look at Kittyhawk's Sabre Dog. Really impressed. 32nd scale kit of the type that I've always wanted. I do hope that Kittyhawk look at some of their 48th scale releases and scale those up to 32nd as well. But I'm really going to enjoy building this kit. In fact, straight after this video, it's straight up onto the workbench and will feature in a future issue of Scale Aviation Modeler International. Thanks to Kittyhawk for supplying us with the review sample.